My name is Melanie, and I am now on the internet, which we were just talking about. I used to have a private practice for over 25 years. I've got 40 years of experience, and I would definitely call myself a relationship expert, not only by going through a lot of stuff of my own personally, but also in counseling and working with the mind and our stories and all of that kind of stuff that goes with all about us and how that affects our relationships. You can read more about me on my website, which at this moment is called epictransitions.ca, but soon to be coming out is melanietruppwellness.com, which I primarily work with women. And that's my focus. And that seems to be my passion, only because I am a woman myself, but also because I think, as I mentioned to you before, women have children, women have sons. Sons become husbands, sons become fathers. And I think that when we can work on ourselves, we can change and help facilitate change in the whole world when it comes to our connections, women, men, all of that stuff.
I wonder how many mothers out there who have, let's say, for example, sons who are looking at them and saying that, you know what, I want you to be everything that maybe your father wasn't, right? Or maybe everything that your father was when it comes to the good part of the relationship. And the reason why I share that is I know that, at least I believe, that the first teachers, instructors of a child is the mother, because you have that bond, you have that connection. And it could be very difficult for parents in general, I would say probably single parents, to make sure that they're not delegating or maybe passing on some of the trauma that they experience in their relationship onto their children. So is that something that you see with the women that you work with?
Yeah, the way I look at it is a son will see how his mother is allowing herself to be treated. Okay. So that's what he's learning. And that's how women will be treated. I mean, if his mother is allowing it, then he's gonna say, then I can probably do it too. I don't want to pigeonhole, the sons, but I think that's a huge reflection. So a mother and what she allows in relationship and how she handles herself in relationship is pretty much setting the foundation of what he can do and was expected of him in a relationship. So I think that is, again, it's primarily up to her. So if she, let's say, for example, is in a abusive relationship where she doesn't stand up for herself, or she doesn't have a voice, a son is going to look at this and say, well, that's just the way it is. And so I will become overbearing. I'll become overpowering. I may do this. I may not do this. And it's not cut in stone, but it's either you swing one way or you swing the other way. So I think that a mother has a responsibility to show her son how a woman needs to be treated and what a woman expects. But a woman can't do that if she hasn't done her own personal work and her value and her worth and so on and so forth. And it's not about becoming, a powerful old nag. You know, that's not what I'm talking about, or the one who always wears the pants in the family, like that kind of stuff. But just of her self-esteem and her self-worth and her value of who she is, then she can sort of send that message out to her sons that I am the example of a real woman, and you will then look for someone who is also that. And you will notice if they are not. So if your mother stood up for herself, or she had a voice, but she was compassionate, she was loving, she was caring, she was all of that, the son will probably want to gravitate to a woman who is similar in those traits. If
So
that
it seems no, like so it seems like the responsibility would be on the parents to set a good example. And I know it can be like difficult, right? Because they're busy, and there's many times where they're like, well, you know what? This is what you should look for: X, Y, and Z. I may not be that, Melanie, right?
Well, I think we got
But
to
you better
stop
bring, right? But you
pointing.
better bring home someone that's like that, because if you bring home a girl or a guy that's crazy, I may have to do something to them.
Yeah, but the apple doesn't fall from the tree, and the old saying, monkey see, monkey do, like if you're just pointing, it's like, parents having a cigarette in their mouth and telling their kids not to smoke. Like, come on. Like if you're not going to be the living example and you're just pointing it out, it's like kids are not going to see that. They're not. It's just lip service. It means nothing. So to say that, not enough time, I guess that's always a pet peeve. Like, when is the time? Make the time. This is important, get your act together so that if I look at the mothers, you have children and children are looking at you and this is what they see, and
Yeah.
this is the example. This is, you can't just point a finger, don't do this. Like, don't, don't do this, even though I'm doing it, you know? I mean, some
Remember,
won't.
no, go
Hmm?
ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to
Go
say
ahead.
some kids won't. I don't want to be like that. But trust me, okay? You can say all you want that you don't want to be like that. But sometimes in those moments when you're exhausted, you're tired, or you're whatever, oh my God, I'm just like my mother. Or oh my God, I'm just like my father. So even though you say it, there's still that imprinting is there, whether you like it or not. So that's the responsibility that mothers have for their sons. Yeah.
I've seen some people where they would say, it's interesting. Like you would ask them, would you want your child to bring home someone like you? And the answer is no. And I always found that somewhat interesting, sad, and funny at the same time. And here's why. It's sad because at least the parents are aware enough to know that there's something about them that they need to fix, which they wouldn't like for their child to have
Yes.
to go through. And it's funny in a way because it's kind of like saying that, oh, I know I'm the problem, but don't worry about me. You better bring you like you need to get on my level, right? You need to handle me. It's like you ever been to the zoo and you see like the zookeepers and they're handling the animals.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
similar to that. And it makes me kind of chuckle because I know the changes I went through, but it was a difficult conversation. And simply what I did was I stood in the mirror and I said, what is it that you like about yourself? And I said, Train, what is that you like about yourself? I said the things. What is it that you don't like? And I said the things. What is it that you're going to change?
yeah.
Right. But that takes courage to say that, especially if I'm thinking, okay, I've been at my job for 20 years. I may be late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I've been having relationships. They may not be healthy, but they not be successful. But it's like, you know what, Melanie? It doesn't matter how toxic I am. It doesn't matter how much pain I'm bringing to my children or maybe chaos to other people. There is always someone there to
Hmm.
say, yes, I will go on a date with
Of course. Yeah, we mirror in what we are. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And that's an interesting thing, because we had a workshop this morning and it was about our stories, and instead of being the victim of a relationship that's toxic, or a victim of a relationship that doesn't work, or they're not doing something right, or they're doing this and they're doing that, they're doing it to me. This is not my problem. They have the problem. Okay. It's really hard sometimes, but it's the most enlightening thing, is to realize that this is mirroring where you are. You're bringing this level of relationship in because this is where you are. And it may be that deep down underneath is a belief system that you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, or you're not lovable. And trust me, you will bring in someone who will show you what you believe you are. And that's the way it is. So this is what's the huge gift of looking at your relationships with that eye and saying, okay, this is a mirror. What am I doing? Where are my beliefs that have brought this in? What energy level am I living at that has brought this in? And it can be your energetics, it can be a whole bunch of stuff, but you are drawing it in. You are bringing it in. It's not about changing the relationship. If you don't change yourself, you're going to bring the same kind in, just in a different package. That's it. But it's going to be play out the same way all the time.
Why do you think that is difficult for some people to understand and then maybe make those changes?
Because we have a victim mentality. We have we like to blame. It's not me. I'm not responsible for any of this, and I think it's just a victim. It's easy to be a victim. I mean, in my mind, in my life, it's not easy. I think it's the most difficult thing to do is be a victim because you're powerless. But there's an easiness about it that you don't have to do any changing yourself. You don't have to look at yourself. You don't have to undo what is done. You don't have to change what you're doing. It's easy to be a victim, and then you can blame, and therefore you're not responsible. So that's a real easy way, but it's powerless. It's a powerless position to be in. So when you start recognizing that you're creating this through your energetics, through your belief systems, your stories about yourself, your stories about relationship, you are drawing this in to simply mirror what you're believing, what you're saying, your stories. You're doing it all yourself. You are doing it all yourself. And there's also someone who's very happy out there just to come forward and go, hey, we match. We totally match. You believe you're unworthy. I don't think you're, I'm anger at the world. I'm this. We're just like, we're totally matching. Let's just carry this story right out and prove it to the world. You know, it's insane. It really is. Although it's very painful. I do understand that. I mean, when you're in it, it's not beautiful. It's nothing to be laughed at because you really feel like you're suffering. You really do. But if you're listening, listeners, that you are doing this to yourself, if you really can understand it's your stories, your belief systems that are creating it, man, that's so powerful because then you can change it.
I compare victimhood to fresh laundry. Like you ever taken the laundry, you have that hot blanket, it's warm, but eventually it gets cold, right? And that's what I compare it to because it's very comforting. Fresh out, you get that very nice scent with the bounce sheets, but then all of a sudden it wears off. It becomes cold. And you're like, oh, this old thing. That's what victim mentality is because it can seem so comforting when you find a new oppressor. My
Yeah.
job, my ex, my kids, my dog. That damn
Yeah.
neighbor down the street won't stop playing the music, right? There's always an oppressor. And for those who are maybe stuck in the victim mentality, to a degree, it isn't your fault because as human natures, we do love things that are comfortable. But a big part of you staying stuck in it is your fault because everyone who lives in the victim mentality, they know that they're there,
Yeah.
right? And it is tough to deal with because at that point you have a choice. Do I say, Melanie, I'm the problem? Because as you mentioned, I'm broken. This is my story, and my story is attracting other people, right? I feel like I can't be loved, so I'm going to attract people that don't want to love me.
Yeah.
Or do I say that, okay, I need to change what I'm doing because the outcome that I'm getting is not what I want, right? Like, is that something that maybe either yourself went through or maybe some of the women who are going through where it's like, you need to realize sooner than later because unfortunately we don't have forever in this world.
That's so true. One of the things I always say is there's no such thing as a victim, just a willing participant. Yeah, that's why I say a willing participant. And I don't think it's about fault or blame. I like to, because that's part of still a victim mentality. There's a fault somewhere. There's a blame somewhere. So it's not either blaming them or blaming yourself. It just is like, I would like to take that right out of the whole equation of victim. No fault, no blame. It's just a willing participant. So the stance that you're taking in, you're willingly doing it. Now you may not consciously know that you're willingly doing it, but you are willingly doing it. So it can be, the power thing is if you're in a bad relationship, well, let's look at some options. You can leave. You can change the way you are. You can do this, you can do that to that. And the question is, why are you not? Okay. And that's where you start going down the rabbit hole. Well, why not? So the willingness of willing participant, well, it may be too scary for me to make a change. That might be an option. So that is why you are not. So you're willingly participating in this rather than move it up a notch. Say, I'm consciously accepting this because this is the bigger fear that I have. And when we can start owning those things, and then we'll go, okay, now we start weighing the apple, shall we say, the card, which one is it worth it for me to do this, or is it worth it for me to do this? Like, I hate my job. I can't stand it. I'm so stressed all the time. I absolutely despise it. It's sucking out my life energy, but I'm really afraid of being broke. So instead of being a victim at your job and I hate it and they're being nasty and all that kind of stuff, just take another look at it and say, okay, I'm a willing participant. Why? Because I'm more afraid of being broke. Okay, so actually own it. I'm afraid of being broke. I'm choosing this crap job because this is the one that scares me more. And then you can go, okay, now let's look at that story. So this scares me more. What's behind there? Okay, so what might be behind there is I am terrified of the unknown. So all of these things is where we start looking at this is why I've been a willing participant in this. But when we do it consciously, it helps us sort of move along and say, what about this? What about that? And we get all the way down to the end and we can pull that out. And that's where the power is. And when it's pulled out, it's done, it's over, it's finished. And that portion of your life, that vein, that, like the spider's web, okay? That thread gets taken right back off, and now you're down. Then you start having the skills and you can look at the other thing. Where else am I being a willing participant? Huge, huge way to change your life. Huge way.
I asked someone that question. It was because she was in a marriage and she felt that it wasn't for her and it wasn't working. So I asked her the question. I was like, okay, what's keeping you there? If you're this unhappy and it seems like you have the resources to leave, it wasn't a hostage situation. It wasn't anything like that. She didn't have kids by the person, right?
Yeah.
She had kids from a previous marriage. And I asked her, okay, what is keeping you there? And she's like, I don't want to give up the lifestyle. So you know what she did in her own story, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm going to quote the youngsters here. She went from the hero in her story to the villain. And you know what started her villain arc? She didn't want to give up the lifestyle, so she started to cheat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
just,
now, right? And now this person who is taking care of kids that aren't his, who's providing this lifestyle, he doesn't look so bad because he's still able to do a lot of the things that maybe some other woman would appreciate. But in this case,
right.
the reason why it was falling apart was she wasn't getting as much sex as she wanted.
Right. And then I would go and say, what's his story? Why is he drawing this in? Why is he drawing this in, that a woman who's resentful and a woman who is cheating on him, and why is he drawing that in? Is that what he feels he deserves? The thing is, each individual, regardless, okay, whether the victim or the victimizer, they still, what is their story? Because they'll draw each other in, and they both suit each other. And sometimes we oscillate between victim, victimizer, victim, victimizer, so it's still caught in that loop of either or. You're still a victim when you're a victimizer, because otherwise you wouldn't have to, so it's still caught in that loop. So my question would be to him, so what is it in you that drew this in? What drew this whole play out in?
I think that's the missing piece because there's some people that will say, well, everyone has issues. I'm like, yeah, we all go through something. Right? But then I told her, I was like, you do realize there's people out there who don't have these problems. There's people out there who are living happily ever after. Right. So the question, to your point, right, should be for him and for her and for everyone listening is that if you're going through something, it's not woe is me, it's why is me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Why am I going through this? Right.
Why
And
did I create
yeah,
this? Let's say what
exactly.
going through it is, why did I create it? You know, whether you're going through it or not going through it or running away from it, is why did I create this? And that's the power. And it's really hard for victims to believe that they are creating their reality. They are creating it. It's just, it doesn't matter what side of the fence, where you're the poor me as victim and everyone's, empathize with you, or you're the perpetrator, the victimizer, It doesn't matter. It's you have yourself created this play. You have created it. And to me, that's the beauty in it. If you can look at the play and say, what's it trying to show me about me? It's a mirror. What is it showing me about me? What is it that's mirroring in me? And then once you get that, bingo, it can change if
What
you
are some of
want.
the yeah, what are some of the steps that we can take to identify that and proceed with the change?
I think the first one is accountability and responsibility. That's a big
Oh
step.
my goodness, those are two words, Melanie. You, whew, whew.
That's what it comes down to is I'm responsible for creating this and I'm going to be accountable to it. And so therefore I'm going to understand it, learn about it, and I'm going to change it. That's it. It's so simple. It's such a simple, like a mathematical equation of 1 plus 1 is 2. It's so simple. But for many, I don't want to be responsible. It's going back into the victim, but it's a powerless place of being a victim.
I wonder
It
how
is
many
your life.
people,
You
yeah, I
know,
wonder how many people come out of that situation when maybe it's much later than they should. And I'll give you an example. Someone once shared with me that they were knowingly, sorry, they were doing things that maybe weren't in their best interest, but because they were young enough, they said, okay, you know what, I have enough time to correct the behavior, or at least maybe minimize the impact that it has to my life and the life of others. So this is when they're 20s, right? So they
yeah.
went on in their 20s, and then they're trying to navigate in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s. And then now they realize all these years later, like, oh crap, what I did in my 20s, I'm starting to realize how it impacts me, my relationship now, almost 30 years later. So now you have a situation where all this time has passed where you've kind of neglected it, but in an arrogant way, you said that I have time to fix it. But now you're starting to feel the pinch. You're like, okay, can I actually fix this? Because so much time has gone on and I've been living this way for so long.
Yes, you can. Bottom line, yes, you can. You can do a U-turn as fast as you decide. You can. That's just another justifiable victim excuse is time. I'm at the mercy of time. I'm at the mercy of past. I am a victim of this. There's no such thing. You can do a U-turn immediately. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and the old saying is like victim of the stories, it's too late, instead of the one that's never too late, like it's too much time has passed. You're a victim of that belief system. Like, come on. No, you're not. You can turn around right now, today, this moment, this second, and then ask yourself, why aren't you? Well, oh, it's going to take time. It's going to take
It's
work. Bottom line
hard.
is you don't really want to. Come on, whatever excuse justifies, and then you blame it on the excuse. It's not my fault. It's time. It's not my fault. I'm old. It's not my fault.
I said
Something
that to
else.
someone and I thought they're going to blow up my car. I honestly said that. I was like, you simply don't want to change. But I'm like, to me, there is only two options,
Yeah.
right? Everything else ties up to it. Either you want to do it or you don't want to do it. Like,
Or
well,
how
I'm tired. I came home. I worked 10 hours. My kids. I was like, you don't want to do it. Because here's the thing. If it was, so I'll share a story with, and to the men out there, you're probably going to hate me for this. So one of my friends, he was like, Terrain, the women don't respect me. I can't, they don't want to date me. They always ask me what I'm doing, the job I have, so on and so forth. I was okay. So tell them what it is. Tell them you work wherever X, right? And then he's like, well, sometimes they don't want to continue further because of this information. So you know what he started to do? He started to lie and make up these dream titles. So I told him, wouldn't it be easier to just get the type of job that you think would get you the outcome in life that you want? He was like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. I was like, you don't want to do it. You rather complain because you're complaining for free. I was like, if I charged you for your complaints, you stop complaining,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's so true. And I'll just make an add-on is the part of whether you want to or you don't want to. Let's just cut it down further. You either do or you don't. Because it's not about whether you want to. I'm sure I know for myself there is things that I needed to do even though I didn't want to do it. But I knew it's what I had to do. So it's got nothing to do whether you want to or you don't want to. To me, it's another justifiable victim. It's at the mercy of my wants or my not wants, you know. So we got to raise it up a bit. Either we do or we don't. I mean, if we could drop all the other stuff that we're hanging on to that determine where we move in our life, how we create our reality, so let go of whether I want to or I don't want to. You either do or you don't. It gets, I'm really being really down to the fine line, like it's come on. There's things that you don't want to do, but you got to do it. Okay. So let that one go. Don't be a victim of your wants and your desires or your procrastinations or your whatever. Don't be a victim. There's a higher intelligence in every single one of us that is bigger and better than victim mentality. Okay, that higher wisdom intelligence, okay, that knows. And that's the part that has to direct your life out of the victim mentality and out of change. And in order to change your life, is going into that higher wisdom that knows. And I don't know of anyone that doesn't have that higher wisdom, because if they didn't have that higher wisdom, they wouldn't be sitting there complaining. Instead, they would be in joy and really living their life and really happy. Okay. So that higher wisdom is always there. Okay. Saying, and we're just like, it's not my fault. I don't really want to. And we get lost back in that whole thing again. So that intelligence, there is an intelligence which is above all of this stuff. And if we could listen to that and let it be our guide, absolutely. Instead, we listen to our wants, our desires, our emotions, our fears, everything else. We're a victim of it all, just tossed around in the ocean, back and forth, all over the place.
So let me ask you a question. So when you like see people who are having maybe who have this desire or this they want, like let's say like a serious relationship and they just can't make it work, and we break it down to saying that, okay, what are you doing? Your do's and your wants, right? What are you doing to make it work, and what aren't you doing that is contributing to it not working? Would you advise someone to maybe break it down that way and list it so they can actually see it and say, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing that's contributing to some of the problems I'm going through. This is what I'm doing that's making it work so they can visualize it. Is that something that you would recommend?
That's part of it, but I think you could do a real big shortcut. And I think the shortcut could be simply say, well, why don't you have it? Why don't you have the relationship that you really want and desire? Why don't you? And out will come all the stories and all the why nots. Okay. And that's where you can start sweeping those away, sweeping them away. So that's all your justifiables, all your excuses, all your, stuff that you're hanging on to, all of this, all of that, all of that. And that's where you can start. Those are just the defenses. So when we sweep all those away, the why don't you have it, then we can get down to the real root cause of it. So the rest, all the stuff is the surface of why you don't have it. And that's where you get down into the real root. So you have to hear all the why nots, and you can go on forever and ever and just keep firing them out as fast as someone. But in the end, let's get right down to the nitty gritty. Do you really want it?
So
Do
it's
you
like
really
peeling
want
back
it?
the layers,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
saying, okay, these are okay. Why don't you have what you want? So like, why don't you have it? If you truly, let's say, for example, you want marriage, right? You're a young
Yeah.
lady, you're a young man,
Yeah.
you want marriage. It's okay. Why don't you have it? First layer, defense mechanisms. Oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. It's all external, right? It's
Yeah.
Melanie, it's
Yeah.
Jane, it's
Yeah.
Teresa.
Yeah.
It's okay, get that out of the way. Now, next layer, you. Well, You look left, you look right.
Of
Right? Because then it gets kind of scary for a lot of people, right? Because then it's like,
course it
oh,
does.
right? It's like when you hear that oh from your clients, is it
Yeah.
like a aha moment for you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I already kind of see it before they do sometimes, but that truth, I mean, it's allowing that truth to come up, like you get down to, and that's the emotion, it's tied in with an emotion, and there's a belief system or something there that is, and that's where this whole mess is anchored down into, it's not in your head. This is all the head stuff. Well, because of this, because of that, because of that. And it's like I look at it as like all this stuff that's spewing out is all the intellect of why not. And then as that all gets spewed out, you're diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to that root, that's where the emotion is tied in. That's where that, oh, and all of a sudden that's something comes up, and that's where it's about to erupt and you have a huge breakthrough and you can let that go, which is the anchor of it all, or you can run away. And that's the part is like, this is too fearful, I don't want to get to that truth. It's easier for me to be up here and to have all the other stuff, peripheral blames and all that kind of stuff that's there. So it's it sounds like it's fun, funny, we're sort of like mocking a bit, but it is, and there's humor in it to some degree. It's like, like I often talk about like when a child is having a really bad dream and they come out and, the boogeyman is under the thing and they're really, really scared and they're all this kind of stuff. And it's a dream and you kind of smile and they're kind of, they're cute, they're all scared and it's okay and stuff like that. But for them, that dream is really, really real to them. And they really have those emotions and they really have those fears. And to them, that is real. And so as someone who's on the outside, it's like I have that empathy for them and I understand, but at the same time, that's also not true. That's also that's not okay. And you got to pull them out of that dream. You got to pull them out of that reality so they can come back and then look at it and go, oh my God, that's really not real. All that excuses, all that stuff that I have, even the belief system that is anchoring all this down here. That's all it is. It's not real. It's a choice. I've been hanging on to this and called it the truth, you know, and that's just the whole thing is all about is the stories and the stuff, but it's that real root is deep inside the body. It's deep inside the being. So sometimes it's not just a head thing, sometimes it's not just a change. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just, oh, I'm not accepting that I have boundaries. I can do that. And I have to just kind of raise my level up into my own stuff. But sometimes it's much deeper in there and it's much forgotten. And so as much as we say all the stuff, but we find ourselves in the same pattern again, we have to go down a little bit further and pull that really unconscious. No longer is it conscious, but it's the foundation in which everything else has been built upon, and then it's mirrored back because that's how we enforce it and that's how we believe it. So you're almost sometimes, when you do this deep work in relationship, you're tearing down who you think you are, even though it's, you may think you're unlovable. You may believe it, you may felt it, you may have it all this time, but your head says, no, I am, and you fight it, but you keep drawing in things that are not loving nature. But when you rip that apart, it's almost like taking a part of an identification that you have built your whole life on, and it can crumble down. All of a sudden, everything opens up and big changes take, like holy smokes. There's an old saying, as my how much you have changed since I have changed. The curtain is drawn down and you see things completely different, and people are like, why aren't you being the way you normally were? Like, what's going on? And then friends are lost, relationships, because the mirror is not mirroring that anymore. So it's going to be a huge upheaval in people's lives. So, this work, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you really want it and you can't quite do it at this level, you may have to go even a little bit further and a whole lot deeper and dig out the root. But anything that you're digging out is not who you are. It doesn't belong to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to dig it out. So, and yeah, I
One of
can
the
go further
biggest,
into that.
no, we are. We're gonna dig. We're gonna go as deep as we want them to
Okay,
go for as we are,
sure.
because one of the biggest revelations revelations that was presented to me was someone who had a history. She shared this, and she was like, you know what, I was someone that would use people, my friends, my partners. And then she would always put that out there, right? Because she was that type of person. So one day, to your point, right, she attracted someone that was a user. And
Yeah.
for those who don't know, when you use someone or take for someone, it's a form of abuse,
Hmm.
right? Because you're mistreating that person. And what ultimately happened is that she ended up being used. And she looked at it, as you mentioned, she had an aha moment. She was like, oh, this is what it feels like for someone
Yeah.
to do it to me. This is what it feels like to attract this, because maybe those people attracted her when she was at that point. And then she realized that she had to be better. So one of the things that she did is, even though this wasn't delivered, and I think I've heard this a few times, she like wrote a letter to her ex or her exes, all the things
Hmm.
that she was feeling and things like that. And then she just burned out. She's like, that's me letting go. Because I had to dig deep and understand the role that I played in this happening to me
Yeah.
and what I want to attract going further. And the reason why I appreciate that story that she shared, it's because it takes courage to say that, you know what, even though I was mistreated in this way, I played a role in it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the old one finger, points and three come back. What part of this is in me? What I see in them, where's this in me? And yeah, for sure. And that's really kudos is like that's what it is. It's about sometimes we have these epiphanies. Sometimes it gets done to us. So it's almost like it wakes us up. It's kind of like heartbreak, if a lot of us are the heartbreakers, or and until we get our heart broken, can we have that empathy of what it feels like to be also the heartbroken, versus the heartbreakers, so I think sometimes the universe has a really beautiful and warped sense of humor when we're on the other side of the stick. Is like we need to really get out of it. We have to know both sides. We have to have the empathy for both sides if we want to change something, and that gets us out of the victim. Then we can drop that right out, so that's, and it may be, like, I think it just plays out that way, that when we can understand both sides of the fence, that we can actually move on to the next, like we can dissipate from it, we neutralize it, shall we say. So we are neither the heartbreaker or the heartbroken. We've learned both those lessons, and we learned them, and then we sort of elevate ourselves, shall I say, to another level. And that's what I love about relationships, because for me, my highest and best path of learning about myself and who I am and human nature is through relationships. Now, other people will learn it through something else. We all have whatever way we want to evolve and to learn and to grow and ascend into something much more, or shall we say, who we really are. I've always found that relationships have been a huge gift to me, that they are constantly my teachers, and to look at it that way, that any relationship, whether it's past, gone, or whatever, there's always something to be learned from. And when we can rise from that, there is no wasted time, wasted relationship. They're, as long as they're there to learn from and to grow from and to evolve from, and it's really great if you find a partner who evolves with you. you know I mean, that's if you're on that path. And for me, it's like, if I'm on the path, and I am on the path of continually evolving, then I'm drawing in a partner who is also on that path of evolving, and we can evolve together. But it depends on what our purpose, conscious, what we want, and I would say almost what the purpose of our relationships are for.
Yeah, I will say that the world, life, universe, God, whatever it is you want to call it, will always find a way to balance the equation.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I will also say that every relationship, it could be romantic, personal, professional, you should learn something from it, especially when it ends.
Yes.
If you didn't, you've wasted your time,
Yeah.
because it's a reflection of who you are. Well, it's a reflection on the people involved, and it's a reflection of who you were at that point in time. And either you have a choice, right? Either you're going to continue being that person and you don't evolve, and you're gonna, there's consequences to that. So you're gonna, everything that bad is happening to you will continue to happen to you. You can't say, well, this is just my life. No, no, no. You're allowing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Or the
yeah.
second is to evolve and say, I want something different, right? And continue to grow. And as you mentioned, I think one of the main reasons why each and every one of us is on this earth is to find that person to evolve with.
Yes, although there can also be many people. I think
I was
if
just about
your
to say that. Yes.
intention is to evolve, you will evolve. Whether someone specifically comes in the form of a love relationship, or it's just a random stranger that might say something to you that, oh, wakes me up and moves me to the next level. So I don't think that I don't necessarily believe that. Okay. I think it's great if you do, but it's also okay and great if you don't. If your purpose is to evolve, you will evolve. Okay. And it may be all different. I've had teachers, I've got a partner who I'm, with, of course, but also I was without a partner and I was still, my intention was to evolve. My intention was, and I drew in, or teachers, I had teachers, gurus, I had all of that. So I don't necessarily think that that part, I guess, have a little thing that don't want to set people up, that, that they're not, that they don't have to. And it's okay if you do. And it's certainly okay if you don't, because if that's your intention, you will find friendships, you will find some, even like I say, a stranger that can just do it. The universe is there to support you if that's what your desire is, regardless, whether it be with a partner or not. I just look at my
Well,
partner as an icing on my cake.
well, I guess
So,
let me clarify. So I don't mean one person as in like you getting married,
yeah,
right? I mean like that person that's going to be like, wow, I see that this person can make me do better. It could be a friend, as you mentioned. It could be a coworker. It could be
sure.
a mentor. Because I don't want to think that, I don't want to say that everyone should get married. If you do get married, beautiful, right? If you don't get married, beautiful as well, right? But find like-minded people that can
Yeah,
help you get there, I guess is my
yeah,
point.
absolutely. And if you move into that, you will draw them in. You see, I think there's teachers already, but you can't see them if you're in a particular state or an energy or whatever. Like it's exactly it. So
Boxed
when
in.
you open this up and you're that I think when the student is ready, the teacher appears, but we can't have this limited idea. This is the way it's supposed to look. It could be your pet. It could be anything. It could be, I remember I had a little dog came named Shanti, right? And I said, she's absolutely teaching me completely and totally to be consistent and straight on all the time. And in my office, she was a little therapy dog, right? And I had her on a little leash, and every time she wanted to go over, I'd pull her back, and she'd just keep me to be consistent and all the time like that. And I thought, this is so great. She's just this amazing little teacher that I had to stay on track all the time. If I let it go, she'd go this far. And eventually she would just sit there, but she was training me to be consistent, which then I could take that into other aspects of my life, that I had to be consistent and keep taking the step and keep doing it and keep doing it, keep doing it until it became automatic for me. So, I mean, the teachers come from everywhere if we're open to learning.
I look at my dog, and my dog has taught me so many things, like just even getting out, like routine, like reinforcing routine, because they're very like, okay, it's 7 p.m. I'm at the
I gotta
door,
go. Yep.
gotta
I gotta
go,
go.
right? I
Yeah.
wonder if we could somehow take some of that routine reminder, that discipline that, let's say, animals have, and incorporate it in our own lives, saying that, okay, can I be this discipline when it comes to evolving? That's going to be the word, right? Evolving
Absolutely.
myself, right?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Like
I think it's
taking
like,
from other areas and putting it in, like I know everyone's like, well, I don't have a dog. I'm like, well, it's transferable skills, right? You're taking something that you learn from one area and applying it to a different area in your life, in the expectation that you're going to yield positive results. Would you
yeah,
agree?
it's repeat, 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 and repeat again. It's like when we growing up, brush your teeth. Did you brush your teeth? Did you brush your teeth? and it was day in and day out. And eventually now you don't think about it. You automatically just brush your teeth. At least I know I do, in the morning and at night before I brush my teeth. But as a kid, like I've got grandchildren, like brush your teeth. But if you keep on it all the time, eventually it just becomes normal. And I remember I'm also a 500-hour yoga teacher trainer. And I remember when I was doing my yoga, I left to go to India and I sort of laid out my mat. Before I was always being instructed to do my yoga and someone was calling out the poses and doing all that kind of stuff. And I laid out my mat and I'd kind of stand on it and I'd look at it and I'd walk around. I'd do a few downward dogs. I do a few things like that. And I'd get off of it again, right? And then I'd go back the next day and I'd go on and I'd do a few more. But I kept going to it and going to it. And then by the time I had finished, I was doing the whole primary series every morning. Okay. And I came back to Canada and I said to my instructor, finally, I get it. I'm not doing yoga. Yoga is doing me. And it was without me having to consciously push, do all that. So consciously we move it, then we move it into our unconscious, like driving a car. You don't have to think about it. But in the beginning, you just got to keep practicing. You got to keep doing it and you keep doing it. And so eventually it just becomes the norm. And this is what's been so fascinating because when you talk about having a discipline for your own evolvement and stuff, so things that I've learned about understanding triggers and getting on it and working with it and getting on it and working with it and getting, I can get that done in like less than 5 seconds. Bang, I see it, boop, 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 a change, but it didn't happen overnight. It became, I just kept consistently doing it and doing it over again and practicing and doing it and doing it and doing it. And then it sounds like it's hard work, but that discipline is giving me the freedom. Like it totally gives you the freedom. And that's the part that people sometimes don't understand is discipline. Like, oh God, who wants to discipline? I don't need any discipline in my life. I was disciplined as a kid. I don't need it. But it's discipline gives you the freedom so you don't have to think about it anymore. It just naturally gets done. So it's just repeat, 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 repeat. you know so yeah, so it was great. And I did that with my running practice. I did that with everything, and the next thing you know, it's pouring with rain, and how the heck did I get out here with my shorts on and it's pissing down with rain and I'm running? It was almost sudden I woke up and it's like, what's going on? But I had to go through those places. I don't want to get up, it's too cold outside, it's raining, but I did it. You do that with your dog. I'm sure the dog says, I got to get out and I got to go out. And you're saying, oh, can you just hold it? Like it's raining. I don't want to go out, but you got to go out. You just got to go out. And then after a while, it's just, I got to go out. I got to do it. So they're just teaching you this. And it's a huge gift. I think discipline that we all need that in our lives to free ourselves.
So, Melanie, as we close, what final words do you want to share with our audience today?
Oh, I think I gave a lot of words. No final. Yeah, I mean, if you want for your audience, if there's women out there who want to really dive deep into their relationships, check out my website right now. As I said, it's epictransitions.ca. And just remember, there's no such thing as a victim. It's a willing participant. And I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but if you say, I'm willing participating in this, man, there's so much power where you don't have to anymore.